So I left the East Coast back in the beginning of 2022. And for me, it was not just leaving everything I'd ever known, but it was cutting cords and ties with every version of myself that everybody had ever known. It was the good, the bad, the broken. It was the loyal person, the exhausted person. It was cutting ties with everything and everyone. And it was really scary for me because I had never left like home or that side of the world before. But it was also the first time that I'd ever really got to choose and say, I get to choose what happens next. I get to choose what happens in my story next. I get to choose to walk away from all this. I get to choose to live my life. So for me, it wasn't just about leaving place or the side of the country. It was about leaving the life that raised me, the people that had raised me, the places that had raised me. It was the towns that had my childhood in them. It had my childhood memories held within two mountains. It had my high school teenage years held on the water. It had my abusive marriage held in so many different areas in Virginia. Like it was leaving the people that caused me so much pain and just walking away. I was leaving behind, expectations, the just stay voices, you would say. I was leaving behind the judgment, the weight of, being the strong one, the fixer, the one who never really asked for help. It wasn't just an escape. It was a decision, and it was a hard decision. It was a decision to stop living for everybody else's comfort, everybody else's rules and regulations for my life. It was me choosing to live my own life with my own purpose and with my own peace. So when you leave everything that you know, it's very hard. There's a lot of grief that comes with it, and it's even though that you know that those places or those people, they're not good for you, you still grieve it. You grieve the history of it, the good memories of it, the good memories with the people that could not or maybe are not good for you, the familiarity, the family. I had memories with those people and they were my memories. And even though those memories hurt, some of them did, it was still familiar to me. And I truthfully didn't leave angry. I wasn't angry when I left, but I left honest. I left with, okay, I had gotten remarried. I had married my now husband, and he traveled for work. So he made the decision to move us across the country. And I was petrified when I left because I had never left home. And also I had only known this man for less than a year. But he had given me more safety in the time that we'd been together than I had known from pretty much anybody my whole life. So I took the chance and we moved across the country together, and I married him before we left, like literally 2 or 3 months before we left. And I remember telling people that, hey, we're going to move to Washington State. And my whole family, like, what? You're going where? Why are you going there? You've only known this guy for X amount of months. And I had married him at this point, and they knew I had married him. But they just couldn't understand why would we go across the country? Like, why would we do that? What was the point in that? And obviously there was some explanation, but they kept, after I had left, or right before I had left, they had made all these like wild accusations about different things. And like, I was trapped and I couldn't make my own decisions at that point. That even a family member had gone as far as saying that I had disappeared off the planet Earth and I was a lost cause. It was just the wildest stuff that people had come up with when I was getting ready to leave. And I didn't understand it because they all didn't want me to be abused when they found out all the abuse and stuff had come out, but they didn't want me to leave either. It made no sense to me for the longest time. So anyway, I packed up my entire life yet again, and I moved across the country with my husband. So we ended up in Washington, like I said prior. And what I found on the other side of Washington was a lot of peace. And it's something that I had never had before because there was no family there. I had no friends. I knew nobody. I lived in a completely different world. I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains. When you go from the Appalachian Mountains to the other side in Washington, that world looks so different. The people there are different too. But it gave me space. We hung out in this apple orchard there, and I had so much space to kind of roam and look at the mountains. And I felt like I had a lot of room to be able to breathe. And while Waylon was gone to work, I spent a lot of time, I work still, but I spent a lot of time doing things to help heal myself from all the things that I've gone through. And I had the freedom to reintroduce myself to myself and find out who I was. So I didn't have to pretend anymore. So when somebody, the neighbor, they would come to the door and they asked me how I was, and I said, I'm doing great. How are you? I was being honest. For once, I was really being honest with other people about how I really was doing. And I didn't have to perform anymore. Because performing in your life is hard and it fucking sucks. But I could be present in my life. And for the first time in a really long time, being there and moving across the country and getting away from every single person I'd ever known and everything I had ever known was probably the best decision I had ever made. And I'm so grateful that my husband chose to take that other role somewhere else, because I would have never had the opportunity to learn and grow into the person that I have become and the person I'm still becoming. So leaving the East Coast for me, or leaving my family behind and all these people that hurt me, leaving that behind, it wasn't the end of everything for me at all. It wasn't the end. It actually was the beginning of everything. And it's not because it was easy, it's because it was right. And if you're sitting in a life that you feel like no longer fits you, or a life that no longer serves a positive purpose in your life, I just want you to know you're allowed to leave. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to leave everything and everybody that you know and go somewhere and rebuild your life. You can break the mold. So you're allowed to go where peace is. And I hope everybody watching this, I hope that you find, if you don't have it, your peace.